When one-year-old twin sisters Destiny and Diamond Washington cried in their cribs, their white mother Rebecca packed her bags and screamed at their father, "I won't raise these mixed mistakes another day." This moment of abandonment would forge them into two of the world's youngest self-made billionaires, though they were too young to understand the hatred in their mother's voice that cold Atlanta morning. The year was 2010, and what should have been a happy home had become a nightmare. Rebecca Washington stared down at her beautiful mixed-race daughters with disgust, her face twisted with a racism that shocked even herself. She had married Jerome Washington during a rebellious phase in college, thinking she was being progressive and open-minded. But when the reality of raising biracial children in the South hit her, when neighbors whispered and her own family disowned her, Rebecca's true character emerged. "I can't do this anymore, Jerome," she hissed, throwing baby clothes into suitcases. "Look at them. They'll never fit in anywhere. They're not white enough for my world and your world. I can't live in your world." Her voice dripped with venom as she continued, "They'll never amount to anything with that blood running through their veins. I'm not wasting my life on this mistake." Jerome Washington stood frozen in the doorway, holding a bottle he'd been preparing for Diamond. At 25, he had already worked 5 years as a mechanic, his hands permanently stained with grease, his dreams of engineering school long abandoned to support his family. He had met Rebecca at community college where she was studying nursing, and he genuinely believed love could conquer the prejudice they faced. But now, watching her pack while their twin daughters cried in confusion, he realized how naive he had been. The babies couldn't understand the words, but somehow they seemed to sense the hatred. As Rebecca grabbed her keys and headed for the door, one-year-old Destiny reached out her tiny hand toward her mother, gurgling softly. Rebecca didn't even look back. The door slammed, leaving Jerome alone with 2 crying babies and a shattered heart. That night, Jerome sat on his couch holding both babies, tears streaming down his face as he made a promise that would define the next 20 years of his life. "I don't know how I'm going to do this alone, girls, but I swear to you both, you will never feel unwanted again. You will know your worth, and the world will see it too." The early years were brutal. Jerome worked 3 jobs: the garage during the day, cleaning offices at night, and weekend shifts at a hardware store. He couldn't afford daycare, so the twins spent their early years in the corner of Murphy's Auto Repair, playing with toy cars while their father worked on real ones. The other mechanics initially thought Jerome was crazy for bringing babies to work, but something magical happened. Those little girls became the shop's mascots, and as they grew older, they absorbed everything around them. By age 5, Destiny and Diamond could name every tool in the garage and explain what half of them did. More importantly, they had learned their father's most valuable lesson: hard work and dignity were never things to be ashamed of. Jerome would tell them every single day, "Your mama left because she couldn't see your beauty, your strength, your potential. But I see it, the world will see it, and most importantly, you need to see it in yourselves." The twins started school as bright, curious children, but the whispers followed them everywhere. Those are the mixed girls whose white mama abandoned them. "I heard their daddy works at a garage. My mama says they'll probably end up just like their father, working with their hands." The comments stung, but Jerome had prepared them for this. Every night he would help them with homework at their tiny kitchen table, and he would remind them, excellence is the best response to ignorance. And excellent they were. By 3rd grade, both girls were reading at an 8th grade level. By 5th grade, they were tutoring older students in mathematics. Their teachers were amazed, but some were also suspicious. How could children from such circumstances be so academically gifted? The twins learned early that their success would always be questioned, their achievements always attributed to luck rather than ability. When they were 12, something happened that would change their perspective forever. Jerome had been saving money for months to take them to see a motivational speaker at the Atlanta Convention Center. The speaker was a successful black entrepreneur who had built a technology empire from nothing. As they sat in the audience, Destiny whispered to Diamond, "We could do that." Diamond nodded, and from that moment their path was clear: High school brought new challenges and new opportunities. The twins enrolled in every advanced class available, often being the only black students in rooms full of privileged white classmates. Their AP economics teacher, Mrs. Patterson, made no effort to hide her skepticism about their presence. During parent-teacher conferences, she pulled Jerome aside and said, "I think you should consider more realistic expectations for the girls. Not everyone is college material." Jerome looked at this woman who had never struggled for anything in her life, who had never been abandoned, who had never worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table, and he said quietly, "Ma'am, with all due respect, you don't know my daughters. They're not just college material, they're going to change the world." The twins graduated as valedictorian and salutatorian at 16, earning full scholarships to prestigious Whitmore University. The local newspaper wanted to do a story about them, but the headline they suggested made Jerome's blood boil. Against all odds, mixed-race twins. Overcome disadvantaged background, he refused the interview. His daughters weren't a charity case or a feel-good story about overcoming their circumstances. They were brilliant young women who had earned everything they achieved. At Whitmore, the twins faced their biggest challenges yet. The university was filled with the children of senators, CEOs, and old money families. These students had attended elite prep schools, taken expensive test prep courses, and had every advantage money could buy. Yet somehow, Destiny and Diamond outperformed most of them in every class. Their economics professor, Dr. Harrison, seemed personally offended by their success. During one particularly memorable lecture about entrepreneurship, he called on Diamond to answer a complex question about market dynamics. When she answered perfectly, he frowned and said, "That's a textbook answer. But do you really understand the practical applications?" Then he looked around the room and added, "Affirmative action students often struggle with applying theoretical knowledge to real-world scenarios." The room fell silent. Every eye turned to Diamond, waiting to see how she would respond. She stood up slowly, her voice steady and clear. "Professor Harrison, I understand that my presence here challenges your assumptions about who belongs in this room. But I didn't get here through affirmative action. I got here through excellence. And since you seem to doubt my understanding of practical applications, perhaps I should show you instead of just telling you." That night, the twins made a decision that would change everything. They had been studying the economic disparities in their old neighborhood, noticing how certain areas had become food deserts where fresh, healthy groceries were impossible to find. They saw elderly people taking multiple buses just to buy vegetables, families forced to feed their children from convenience stores because there were no real grocery stores nearby. Working from their tiny dorm room using a laptop Jerome had saved months to buy them, the twins began developing an app that would connect urban farmers directly with underserved communities. They called it Root and Rise, and their concept was revolutionary: create a marketplace where local growers could sell fresh produce directly to neighborhoods that needed it most, eliminating the middlemen who made healthy food unaffordable. They had exactly $200 between them, money earned from tutoring other students. Jerome offered to sell his car to help them, and though they protested, he insisted. "This car can be replaced," he told them. "Your dreams cannot." The $5,000 from selling his 2003 Honda became their seed money. The early days of Root and Rise were grueling. The twins would attend classes during the day, then work on their app until 3 in the morning. They taught themselves coding through YouTube videos and free online courses. When they needed help with design, they bartered tutoring sessions with art students. When they needed legal advice, they volunteered at a legal aid clinic in exchange for guidance from attorneys. Their first breakthrough came when they approached Mr. Rodriguez, who owned a struggling grocery store in their old neighborhood. Instead of looking for trendy office space near campus, they offered him a partnership. They would move their growing operation into the back room of his store, helping him modernize his business while using his location as their headquarters. The partnership was brilliant. Mr. Rodriguez's store became a hub for local farmers and a distribution center for the app. The twins hired formerly incarcerated individuals, giving them second chances and stable employment. They partnered with community gardens, urban farms, and even helped families start small growing operations on vacant lots. Within 6 months, Root and Rise had spread to 12 neighborhoods across Atlanta. Local news stations began covering their success, and social media exploded with stories about the teenage twins who were revolutionizing food access. But their biggest test was yet to come. A major venture capital firm, led by Charles Blackwood, invited them to present their business plan. Blackwood was known for his aggressive tactics and his tendency to steamroll young entrepreneurs. The twins spent weeks preparing their presentation, knowing this could be the $5 million investment that would take Root and Rise national. The meeting started well. Their numbers were impressive, their growth projections were conservative but promising, and their social impact was undeniable. But as they neared the end of their presentation, Blackwood interrupted them with a smirk. "This is all very impressive," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "Though I have to admit I'm surprised that people like yourselves understand technology this complex. Most of the successful apps in this space have been developed by, well, more traditional entrepreneurs." The room went quiet. The twins exchanged a look, and Diamond stood up slowly. Her voice was calm, controlled, and devastating. "Mr. Blackwood, our people invented mathematics while your ancestors were still figuring out agriculture. We built pyramids that still stand today while others were living in huts. And now we're about to revolutionize an industry that you clearly don't understand as well as you think you do." She began packing up their materials while Destiny continued. "We came here looking for an investor, but what we found was someone who would rather focus on our race than our results. We don't need your money, and we certainly don't need your prejudice." They walked out of that conference room, leaving $50 million on the table, but taking something far more valuable: their dignity and their unshakable belief in themselves. 3 months later, everything changed with a single phone call. Patricia Chen, the Asian American CEO of one of the largest tech conglomerates in the world, had been quietly following their journey through viral social media posts about their walkout from the Blackwood meeting. "I've been in this business for 20 years, Chen told them during their first phone conversation, "and I've never seen entrepreneurs with your combination of vision, character, and resilience. I don't care about your age, your background, or anything else except results. And your results speak for themselves." Chen's offer was breathtaking: $500 million for just 10% of Root and Rise. The investment valued their company at $5 billion, making each twin worth $2.25 billion. At 22 years old, Destiny and Diamond Washington became the youngest female billionaires in history. The irony wasn't lost on them. The mother who had abandoned them because they would never amount to anything had inadvertently created two of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. The moment Rebecca left, she had unknowingly given her daughters the greatest gift possible: the burning desire to prove her wrong. But success brought unexpected challenges. 3 weeks after the Chen deal was announced, the twins received a call from a lawyer representing Rebecca Washington. After 12 years of silence, their mother wanted to reconnect. She had been following their success through news articles and social media, and she claimed she had been young and confused when she left. The twins' response was delivered through their assistant with calm finality. "Ms. Washington is too busy changing the world to look backward." They had no anger left for Rebecca, no hatred, no desire for revenge. She had become irrelevant to their story. Instead, they channeled their success into something meaningful. The Jerome Washington Foundation was established to provide educational scholarships and business mentorship to children from single-parent households. They built community centers in food deserts, funded urban farming initiatives, and created a network of support for young entrepreneurs who looked like them. The crowning moment came when they returned to their old high school to speak to current students. The auditorium was packed, and sitting in the back row, looking uncomfortable and small, was Professor Harrison from Whitmore University. He had driven down from the university, perhaps hoping for some acknowledgement, some forgiveness, some redemption. Destiny took the podium first, her voice carrying clearly through the sound system. 12 years ago, a woman looked at two one-year-old babies and decided we would never amount to anything because of the blood in our veins. 8 years ago, a teacher told our father to have more realistic expectations for us. 4 years ago, a professor suggested we didn't belong in his classroom because of affirmative action. She paused, looking directly at Professor Harrison. Today, we employ 50,000 people worldwide. Our company has brought fresh, affordable food to over 2 million families. We've created wealth not just for ourselves, but for thousands of farmers, drivers, store owners, and employees who believed in our vision. Diamond joined her sister at the podium for the final words. When people underestimate you because of your race, your gender, your circumstances, or your past, remember this. Their limitations are not your limitations. Their prejudices are not your destiny. Sometimes the very people who count you out are giving you the greatest gift, the fire to prove them wrong. In the front row, Jerome Washington wiped tears from his eyes as he watched his daughters command the stage. The man who had once questioned whether he could raise 2 babies alone now watched those babies inspire thousands as successful women and business leaders. After the speech, as people filed out of the auditorium, Jerome approached his daughters backstage. "Your mama left because she couldn't see what I saw in you every single day," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "She couldn't see your strength, your brilliance, your beautiful spirits. But the whole world sees it now." The twins hugged their father, the man who had sacrificed everything to give them the foundation they needed to build their empire. Rebecca's abandonment had been cruel and racist, but it had also been the catalyst for something extraordinary. In trying to destroy her daughter's future, she had actually freed them to create a legacy beyond her wildest imagination. As they drove home that night, Destiny turned to Diamond and said, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if she had stayed?" Diamond smiled and shook her head. "No, because then we wouldn't be who we are today. Her leaving was the best thing that ever happened to us. She gave us our father's full attention, his unconditional love, and most importantly, she gave us something to prove." The story of Destiny and Diamond Washington became more than just a tale of business success. It became a testament to the power of turning abandonment into motivation, racism into resilience, and doubt into determination. Their mother had told them they would never amount to anything, but in the end, they amounted to everything she could never be: strong, compassionate, successful, and free from the hatred that had consumed her. When people ask them about their incredible journey from abandoned babies to billionaire entrepreneurs, they always give the same answer. Your background doesn't determine your future. Your response to adversity does. And in those words, countless other dreamers find the courage to prove their own doubters wrong.